Imagine finding a child traumatized beyond words, staring up at you with eyes that seem to harbor something darker, something that won't be fixed with therapy or time. Dexter Morgan faced that exact scenario, but instead of trying to heal the darkness in young Dexter, he did something else. He decided to harness it. Harry thought he was saving Dexter, but was he really? How much of Dexter's fate was sealed the moment Harry took him in? And how much did Harry's decisions pave the way for a path Dexter might never have to walk? We need to start at the beginning. Harry was a seasoned cop, a man who'd seen the worst of humanity. He found Dexter at the most vulnerable moment of his life, just a small child left in a pool of his mother's blood, a scene of brutality that few could ever imagine. This trauma was undeniably a turning point for Dexter, but what Harry chose to do next was another pivotal moment, one that shaped Dexter into the person he became. Initially, Harry's concern was pure: protect Dexter. He knew something was off. Those signs of attachment, that fascination with dead animals, and eventually, those early acts of violence. Harry could have sought out help, psychological experts, trauma counselors. Instead, he chose secrecy. He chose to deal with it himself, isolated from any outside influence. But he wasn't entirely alone. Enter Dr. Evelyn Vogel. Dr. Vogel played an important, though often overlooked, role in Dexter's upbringing. She was a psychiatrist specializing in psychopathy, and she knew how to identify and manage the kind of impulses Harry saw in Dexter. Harry reached out to her out of desperation. He needed someone to help him understand what was happening with his adopted son, someone who could offer guidance where traditional methods couldn't. Vogel advised Harry, but the choices he made afterwards were his own. Harry ultimately trusted Vogel's advice to embrace the darkness in Dexter. Instead of attempting to cure it, she helped him craft the code, a set of rules that would direct Dexter's urges towards a supposedly justifiable purpose. To Harry, this seemed like the only way to protect Dexter, but even here, Harry's instincts were clouded. He was thinking like a cop and a father, wanting to prevent Dexter from becoming an out-of-control killer. But by giving Dexter this rigid set of guidelines, Harry wasn't protecting his son, he was trapping him. Harry taught Dexter to kill, but only the right people, those who deserved it. This seemed like a practical solution, a way to shield Dexter from his uncontrollable urges, while keeping society safe. The truth is, though, is that Harry's decision was deeply flawed. He assumed that Dexter's darkness could never be expunged, that there was no way for Dexter to ever lead a normal life, and this assumption, which was reinforced by Vogel's clinical approach, became the foundation upon which Dexter's entire identity was built. While Dr. Vogel's involvement was crucial, it was Harry's belief in her that solidifies Dexter's path. Vogel saw Dexter as a fascinating subject, a success story in her quest to understand psychopathy. But Harry saw Dexter as his son, someone he was supposed to love and protect, and yet Harry's love became conditional. He accepted Dexter as long as he operated within the boundaries of the code. This conditional love told Dexter he can never be normal. They can never be truly whole as a person. We can see this impact clearly in Dexter's adulthood.
I can't believe I finally got you. I won.
This isn't a game, Dexter.
No, I know.
It's not supposed to be fun.
Yeah, it's just...
Do you think I want to teach you these things? This is the only way I know how to keep you out of an electric chair. This is about survival, Dex. Nothing else. Got it?
Every time Dexter prepares for a kill, it's Harry's voice that guides him, reminding him of the rules. The code that Harry passed down became a compass for Dexter, but also a cage. It allowed Dexter to justify his actions, but it also kept him from ever truly confronting his own trauma, his own humanity. Instead of growing beyond the darkness, Dexter was taught to embrace it, and Harry's true failure came into focus when he saw what Dexter had become. When Harry witnessed Dexter's first kill, a scene of cold, calculated violence, he realized the horror of what he had done. The boy he wanted to save was now a full-fledged killer, albeit one with a moral code. The weight of this realization was too much for Harry, leading him to take his own life. He couldn't live with a monster he'd created, a monster he himself had tried to mold into something more acceptable. Harry's role was more than just creating the code. He became Dexter's internal voice, his justification. Even years later, when Dr. Vogel re-entered Dexter's life, her influence was secondary to the impact Harry had already made. Vogel saw Dexter as the embodiment of her theories, but Harry was the one who gave Dexter his purpose. Harry's lessons were rooted in a twisted form of love, a desire to protect Dexter, even though it meant turning him into something inhuman. What makes Harry's influence so significant is that it came from a place of love and fear. Unlike Vogel, whose interest in Dexter was primarily clinical, Harry cared deeply for Dexter. He didn't want to see his son hurt or locked away. But in trying to protect Dexter, Harry made a series of choices that ultimately harmed him more. Instead of helping Dexter process his trauma, Harry chose to weaponize it. Instead of encouraging Dexter to confront his darkness, he taught him to channel it. The tragedy of Harry and Dexter is that Harry only saw two choices: let Dexter become a chaotic, uncontrollable killer, or shape him into a calculated predator who only killed the guilty. But perhaps there was a third option, one that Harry never truly considered, seeing Dexter not as a problem to be managed, but as a son to be loved, a child who needed real help, not just control. Harry's biggest mistake was not trusting in Dexter's ability to change. He treated Dexter's darkness as an absolute, something that could never be altered or softened. He chose to mold Dexter into what he thought would be the safest version of a killer, but in doing so, he denied Dexter any chance of healing. He denied him the possibility of seeing himself as more than just his trauma. So how much of Dexter was Harry's fault? Nearly all of it. Harry took a traumatized child and decided that his darkness was insurmountable. He turned his love into control, his protection into a set of rules that forced Dexter to remain a killer. Virgil may have helped craft the code, but it was Harry who decided that this was Dexter's only path, that his son could never be anything more than what his trauma made, and in doing so, he ensured that Dexter would never truly be free. Not of his dark passenger, not of the code, and not of the identity Harry himself imposed on it.